Hi, this is Patricia Stepler with your Inside Power, where we are teaching you to transform your life by first transforming the powers that you have inside of you. Yeah, I wanted to start today by just clarifying that awareness of your mindset is the starting point. You have to be aware of what's happening in your mindset and become very conscious of the two parts, your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. And that's how you get to your big goal. So success is all about attainment of something. And it can be whatever it is that you're looking for. Maybe it's a financial thing. Most of my clients are looking for financial gain or business growth or scaling their business in some way. But other people I've worked with, maybe in addition to that, or maybe just by itself, are looking for attainment of success in health or in relationships. I did have a client that was looking for wealth and relationships. So they were able to find that success by understanding mindset and how that impacts everything that they do. And it might be that you're looking for attainment of a new position. Maybe you're in work and you want that next job. If you're a student, maybe you're looking for attainment of success in grades. And, that just reminds me. So what we know is that if you think that you are a C-type student, chances are you're going to get C's. If you think you're an A student, chances are you're going to get A's because you see yourself differently. And I remember when I was in college, which was quite a while ago, but I remember when I was in college that I would, every semester, my goal was to be on the dean's list and to get, I forget what it was, 3.5, maybe grade point average. I wanted to make sure I was on the dean's list. I didn't see myself as being able or capable of getting straight A's, but I knew I was capable of getting on the dean's list. And so every semester I would look at my classes and I would decide what grade I was going to get in each class. And I made that decision. And I would say 90% of the time, the decision I made at the beginning of the semester was exactly the grade I ended up with. So what does that tell you? Doesn't that tell you that had I had the expectation that I could have gotten A's in everything, then I would have done the work to do it. But you see, I allowed myself to get a B in certain classes, 1 or 2 classes a semester, and therefore I allowed myself not to work as hard. I know I did. You see, that's the impact of the subconscious mind. My subconscious mind was that my brother could get straight A's, but I could not. And that was all my own thinking. Now, was that reinforced? Yes, I think it was probably reinforced as a very small child, because when I grew up, it was still very much a man's world. And so the expectations for my brother and the expectation for me were completely different. And it wasn't, I don't think it was a conscious thing. I think it was really a subconscious thing as far as my parents. I don't think they realized what they were doing. Certainly they did not have this knowledge, or I'm sure they would not have done that. But it was just the way the world was. And it was just different expectations. So those expectations became ingrained in my subconscious mind. That's the way it works. You have these patterns inside your subconscious mind that are going to impact everything you do. And see, consciously, you can know one thing and yet do another. How many times have you seen business people that you hired two people to, let's say, do sales, and one person just takes off and does a great job, and the other person just really struggles? And yet you know that you have given them the exact same information, the exact same training, the exact same knowledge, and they have very similar type clients maybe that they're going after. And you wonder, what is it? Well, it's nothing that you did. And they may both believe they can be successful. but their subconscious, for the one that's struggling, is struggling because that's the habitual patterns that they have in their life. And the only way that's going to change is through adjusting what's inside of them. Is you can inspire, you can motivate. Have you ever seen somebody that goes to a motivational conference or convention, or even just a day, and they come back all excited because you see that person has hit into their conscious mind that they can achieve so much more. And it's true. We can all achieve. We are all underachieving, and there's always more that we can go for. And so that motivational speaker or conference gets them all excited. And so they're up here in this level for a little bit of time. But as soon as that excitement goes away, because you said excitement was keeping them at a higher vibratory level, and so their frequency was going quicker, and therefore they were at that higher level. But as soon as that starts to wane a little, they go right back to where they were, unless they have impacted their subconscious mind. It's so much easier for small children to make these shifts because they don't have as much baggage. They don't have as much, history of things that have gone wrong for them. And so they're able to make that shift very easily. My son, when he was 12, it was very easy for him to believe that he could do something great in sports. Football, he decided his 8th grade year, I guess it was a little more than the 12, but he decided in his 8th grade year that he was going to catch and score 12 touchdowns for their middle school team. Well, by the 3rd game, he had already scored, I think, 8 or 9. So he reset the goal. Then he got injured, but he blew past that first goal, didn't quite reach the second goal. Because it was easy for him he saw the success early on. He saw that, and he knew he could do it. He got this belief inside of him, and it just kept going and going and going. One game he had, I think, 5 touchdowns. You see that, because he was so young, he hadn't had the experiences so much that he couldn't do it. And it makes a huge difference. Well, I've gotten a little off what my ideas were here. But this just goes to show you, sometimes people say to me that they're very positive that they can do it. That's wonderful. And we do want to be positive, but that doesn't mean you're going to achieve anything more than you normally would. It doesn't have a whole lot to do with your positivity as far as the achievement. It does as far as affecting, your belief system. But it all comes down to this conscious, subconscious. You see, the successful are utilizing different powers. They have tapped into their subconscious mind. They have so ingrained in their subconscious that they can be successful and that they can achieve things, that just like my son in that football example, he blew past his goal and had to reset because he knew his goal was too low. And they have that because they have clarity. The beginning of the season, what did he do? He set the goal. He had a clear vision of what he wanted. And so he had that clarity of vision. He took the action as he was going to practice. His mind was constantly going as to what his goal was. So his body went into action, and he did the things he needed to do in order to achieve the goal. And he also believed he could do it. Now, prior to that, the year before, he didn't get a lot of playing time because they were going to the student that was a year older than him. But that particular year, he knew he was the oldest one in the team, the 9th grade year, the oldest ones there in that middle school team. And so at that point, he knew that he had the ability to have the playing time if he did a good job. He also knew others would take his place if he didn't put the time and the action in. That's what we need to do. You see, once we get that belief, we have to do the actions. We have to do the things that we want to do. And I've seen this happen. You believe, and then you don't do anything. You have the belief that you can do it, but you don't do it. Why? Well, because it's not ingrained enough. It's not ingrained enough in your subconscious. So that can be a problem. And that's what that knowing, doing gap is. You see, consciously, we know we can do it. We know we can do better than we're doing. Consciously, we may even know exactly what steps to take. Subconsciously is where the problem is. I remember I had a client one time and they said, "Oh, I believe I can do anything." And they did, on a conscious level, they did believe that. But on a subconscious level, that belief was not there. Because had it been there, they wouldn't have needed me. They wouldn't have needed me to coach them. They wouldn't have needed that extra ideas and push and so on that a coach can provide if they subconsciously had believed it. Consciously, they absolutely did believe that. So that's just, what makes the difference. For myself, we talk about motivation. I spent pretty much my entire lifetime, my adult life, doing personal development. Probably went to hundreds of conferences, conventions, bought thousands of dollars worth of products from people, books, tape series, DVDs, anything that I could get my hands on. And then I even spent an entire year as a trainer teaching this information to others. And again, listening to tons of information and, how to improve people's lives. And then I got into this coaching business. My point is, prior to getting into the coaching, well, even when I started in the coaching business, you see, I'd done all this personal development and I believed this stuff, but I wasn't necessarily implementing it because on a conscious level, I knew I could achieve greatness. On a subconscious level, I did not. And until the subconscious level changes, nothing much is going to change in your business and in your life. And, even when I started this business, working with Bob Proctor, I was one of his personal students, and working with a man as magnificent as he, it wasn't into my subconscious yet. Why? Well, I had all this baggage and garbage that it was carrying on in my subconscious that needed to be shifted before I could believe that I could achieve that greatness. So you can succeed, but you have to believe that you can succeed. But more than that, you have to know how you can succeed. And that knowledge of knowing is more that subconscious part. And so we have to really close that knowing and doing gap. Subconscious mind is one that sabotages you every single time. And that's the one that frustrates us. And that's the one that, it makes us look in the mirror and say, what is wrong with me? You know you can do it. You know you're capable of doing it. And yet you just don't. That's also the part of your brain that causes your mind, that causes procrastination. Why do we procrastinate? Well, because on a conscious level, we know we need to do it, but on a subconscious level, maybe we don't believe that we can. And so we will procrastinate doing something. So the subconscious will sabotage you every time. And it's your results that will always tell what's going on in your subconscious. If you're not getting the results that you want, if you're not earning the money you want, you're not controlling your weight enough, you're not building the relationships you want, you're not getting the promotions you want, it's because of your subconscious. And until you learn how to change and shift that subconscious, nothing's going to change. So what's one of the great ways? Affirmations. But here's the other thing. You can write affirmations, you can speak affirmations, but again, if it just stays in the consciousness, it's not going to shift. I remember one of the things Bob would say is write your goal down 100 times a day until it gets so ingrained. And for some people, that absolutely made the shift for them. I saw it with my own eyes. These people had made great shifts. I would write it and my hand would start to hurt. And then my thoughts all became on my hand instead of what I was writing. And so for me, that wasn't good. I had to hear it. And so that's when I started taking my phone and recording something on my phone and then having it play. And then that was getting into my subconscious. So different things work for different people. Other people use vision boards. And that's a great way because they look at that vision and they see it every day and it gets so ingrained in their minds. So for everybody, it's something different. So just because somebody says this is what you need to do, you have to make sure that that's the thing that's working for you. But it's your results that you get that are telling what's going on in your subconscious. And they're telling you whether you have the belief or not. So saturate your mind with whatever type of auto-suggestion, which is what all that is, whatever type of auto-suggestion works for you. Whether it is the listening, whether it's the writing, whether it's the vision board, but you have to have some type of auto-suggestion that's getting that into your head. And when it gets into your head, eventually it has to come. Once you embed it in that subconscious, then it has to happen. So how do you know if it's really embedded in your subconscious? You have to trust your feelings. You have to become very in tune with who you are and how you're feeling. And when you know something is embedded in your subconscious, you'll feel a shift. You feel a shift and you know it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And when you feel that shift, other people see it too. They will see that shift in you. Now, they may not know what that shift is, if they don't know this type of information, but if they understand, what you're doing and they understand the process you're in, they will see that shift in you and they'll know it's just a matter of time. But this is also when other people start recognizing, and they won't know why maybe they're recognizing something, but they might ask you to do something. So for instance, when I was in the education world and very early on in my teaching career, and I was in multiple different buildings, I had multiple different administrators, but almost every single one within a year or two of them getting to know me would ask me to be in a leadership position. Now, the first time it happened, I was like, what, me? I'm like one of the youngest people in the staff, definitely the youngest one on my team. And you're asking me to be in charge of them and to be the leader. And I couldn't understand it. And it took me a while to realize that, you see, they saw in me what I didn't see in myself. And that's the other thing. Other people will see in you what you don't see because you live with yourself all the time, right? And they are seeing you from a different perspective. And so they're seeing different qualities in you than what you see in yourself. And once I figured out what was going on, I understood it. And then I realized why I was being chosen for different leadership positions. So when you do that, when you start to have that shift and you've got to be persistent. It can't be a one time you write your goal or a one-time thought. It has to be consistent and persistent. And you have to do it every single day. You have to think of that goal. You have to think of the things that you want. And that's the other thing. Don't just think the goal. Think of what you're going to do when you achieve that goal. If it's a monetary goal, what are you going to do with the money? If it's a position goal, what are you going to do? What will that enable you to do? If you're going to a manager or a vice president or something like that, obviously the income is going to come there too. So what are you going to do with that? How is that going to make you feel inside when you are now the vice president or the president? And which shift will you feel? And you have got to get those feelings before it happens. You have to become the person before it's going to happen. You see, even though I didn't see myself as a leader, subconsciously, I was building myself as a leader. And I actually built myself as a leader before I became a leader. And that's why I was chosen. When you want to be, let's say you want to go from manager to vice president, you have to start seeing yourself as the vice president. You have to start seeing yourself solving the issues that the vice president at your company would have to solve. You have to portray yourself as having the ability. So you might have to maybe dress a little differently. How does the vice president dress? How are you dressing? Is there a difference? If there is, then start to look like the vice president. Maybe it means you're actually going to have to talk to people in a different way, relate to people and communicate in a different way. Study those people that you admire at that level where they are. And then you have to model after what they're doing because they know how to get there. You haven't gotten there yet. So obviously you have something you need to learn. And then you have to start shifting that subconscious. You have to see yourself doing those things now, because the goal always comes after you've made the shifts in you. The goal always comes after you've made the shifts. My son set the goal, but he had to become it first before he acquired it. So there's a way of doing things, doing the right things. Some of it, you have to get yourself into the right place at the right time. And you have to do the right thing. And we don't want to make the excuse if I have this or if I had that, then I could do it. No, that's not the way it works. You need to acquire those skills or those talents in order to get there. I have here, only give 80% of effort if you want to leap between buildings. You know, if you leap between buildings, but you only give yourself 80% effort, what happens? Sadly, you're not going to make it. To leap between two buildings, you're going to have to give yourself 100% effort to get there. Well, it's the same way with your goals. You're going to have to give yourself 100% effort to get there. If, you know, whatever that perfectionism is, you have to give yourself 100%. Okay. So that is one thing. We have to, you know, first be perfect at what we're doing. And then we have to keep that momentum going. I wrote down here, do the first thing perfect until it becomes easy to move to the next step. There's always going to be another step to move to, right? And so we have to realize that we have to get really comfortable doing the first thing before we're going to be able to add the second. Well, why is it? Because otherwise you're going to become overwhelmed. And when you become overwhelmed, then it just adds stress and you feel pressure. And we don't want to have stress and pressure. We want to be calm and peaceful. So the way we do that is by perfecting the first thing that you need to do first, and then moving on. So I think back when I learned how to play the piano. When you learn how to play any instrument, but we'll just use the piano because of the visual, the white keys and the black keys. When you start to learn the piano, you usually start one of two ways. You either start by learning on the 5 black keys, or you start learning on the white keys. You don't mix the two up at first. So depending on what method they're using, they may start you out on middle C and show you, and they'll probably use one hand first, the right hand generally, and then the left hand. And so there's a method or a process that goes in place to teaching you how to play the piano. And at first they'll just label everything like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, instead of confusing you by C, D, E, F, G. You know, so there's a method. Everything has to have a method. Well, I also have a method of how I work with businesses and with people that puts everything in the correct order. Because when you get the process, when you learn the first thing, that's the first step, and you get really good at that, then you can move on to the next step. But if you try to do too many steps at once, you just add confusion and chaos to your thinking, to your brain gets cluttered, but you also get frustrated. So it's best to learn something and really perfect it until you move on. Think of this as math. You learned how to add first. Why? Because adding is probably the easiest thing. Once you learned how to add and you became really good at it, you went from single digits, now you add double digits, you get to triple digits, and then you start to learn to subtract. Well, why do you subtract next? Well, because that's the next easiest step. Well, then you go to multiplication and then division. You see, they take each one in an order, you perfect it, and then you move on. You didn't have math where you learned to add one day, subtract the next, multiply the next, and do division the next. You probably didn't even have a year that you did that. And so you learn one thing until you learn it well, so that when you add that next step, you're not overwhelmed and confused. So develop that skill that you need and develop it really well before you move on to the next thing. And understand that you need to have a power of awareness of you and understand how the conscious mind and the subconscious mind are working for and against you. So to reach the next level, you must make the most use of the current level where you're at. Keeping that goal in mind doesn't mean you ignore the goal. You still figure out, okay, what do I need to do to get to that goal? But let's learn one thing at a time so that we don't overwhelm ourselves. And when we move on, then we have a pattern and a place to go. So that is exactly what I did when I started my business. I totally overwhelmed myself because I was like, somebody would say, you need to learn this and you need to learn that and you need to learn this and this and this. And, so then I'm trying to figure out, 8 or 10 things, totally overwhelm myself. And what happened? Nothing. I got so stuck. I got so frustrated and I didn't get anywhere. And so you have to learn one thing at a time. Social media was the same thing. Learn one thing and then you can move on. So that's what I help my clients to do. I have seen how businesses can get overwhelmed because they're trying to do too many things at the same time and they're counterproductive and they don't move forward. And so that's what I like to help businesses to figure out where the pieces are that maybe they tried to put in place that weren't at the right place at the right time. And then they've gotten confused and discouraged because it's not coming together. And so that's kind of my forte, is to go into businesses, help them figure out where the problems are, and then how to find the solutions to fix those problems. So I have my link in the show notes that you can schedule a meeting with me. I'd love to go through and see if we'd be a good fit for each other, and if I can help you. If I can't help you, I'm not even going to give you a proposal or anything. I just want to work with the people that I know I can help and the people that are really interested in that help. So let's have a chat. Love to get to know you and figure out how I can help you to move towards your goal so that you accomplish everything that you want.